Hello, hello. Welcome one, welcome all to Face the Facts, the premiere episode. Um, this show was not really planned to be today or really anytime soon, but I mean, shit, here we are. Um, Obviously, we all saw what happened on Friday. That was a rough showing, and we're going to get into that. We're going to get into the Menors Live that followed. We're going to go over the show and what happened over this past week and just essentially try to amend the KMS network review of what happened over this past week because a lot of shit happened and I feel like it did not get talked about in a good way at all. Right now, we got just me. Maybe in the future, we'll have more people on, have some fun with it. It's not going to be weekly, every other week or anything. It's probably just going to be whenever I'm like, got something to say, which obviously, as you guys know, is all the fucking time. So who knows? We might be doing this just every day. But let's get into it. First, we got to go and talk about Mike and the Minifans. So originally, I was planned to host the show, and due to some last minute stuff with my job, I was not able to. I had to go and prep for some stuff, and I was able to check in to see how things were going. They were not going too good. Overall, though, for the show, this is not on PRC. I don't blame him, at least, because PRC, if y'all don't know, when he's hosting the show, you can tell he is a conversation starter. He is starting the conversation and he is allowing the panel to actually sit there and discuss it. And unfortunately, when you have a panel of Luke and Random Sports Chad, no fault to their own, because Chad, of course, is new and doesn't know. I mean, like, probably knows even less than me, and I don't even know a lot. But they can't really flow the conversation as well as they might want to. And then finally, too, later in, you got Gilroy who comes in, and holy fucking shit, that dude does not shut the fuck up. He got into the show, and immediately for the next, I believe it was 5 or 6 minutes straight of him talking, made it all about himself and how woe is him and how he is the victim. So he essentially did what everyone had a problem with Mick doing over the past week and a half specifically, and any other time Mick has had a problem in the past. So that didn't go well. PRC tried to get the discussion going with some questions, and he tried to influence discussion into the panel, but it was rough because Chad didn't know what he was talking about in the slightest, and seems to be not the best conversationalist in general when it comes to specifically KMS. And then for me, Luke, who I like, Luke is fine. He just was doing a lot of bit talk. It was just like he was there purely to back Mick. And that just ended up derailing the entire conversation because, I mean, if you're there to back Mick and just be the dude who's doing the bit on Mick, there's not really a lot you can do about that. So, I mean, like Freddie Lynn says right here, when Luke is your top panelist, you're in trouble. Yeah, I mean, Luke is great to have on when you have him able to have a source of conflict with somebody, because that way, Luke is just going to troll somebody the whole time, and there is always going to be someone within the Minifan network universe that is going to get pissed at the trolling because they're not going to understand it because it goes right over their head. But I mean, what can you do about that? So overall, the show was probably one of the worst ones that we've had in quite a while, probably since my first one hosting. So I guess it's not that long, but like everyone says, once you get seasoned to it and once you get used to the Minifan universe, everything just kind of starts flowing naturally. Like, if you looked at me from the beginning and you looked at me now, I was probably nervous as fuck now, or excuse me, nervous as fuck before. And then now it's just kind of like, is what it is. You either going to have people that fucking hate you and then they're going to like you, or people are going to like you and then they're going to hate you, or they're just going to dedicate themselves to hating you the whole time. So there's not really much you can do there. And then on that same night, we immediately went over to Menors Live, and Menors tried to talk about things. I mean, Menors in general always at least has something to say in regards to substance about the conversation, and he can add something to it. But he didn't really get into the show that everyone wanted to. And in my opinion, I think he cut it short. I was kind of expecting him to go for like an hour and then maybe go over the week of the show, because the whole thing that I wanted to see was somebody review the crazy week that just happened on KMS, because tons of shit happened. So, although I think Menors did good, I mean, as he usually does, he's been doing this for fucking ever. I just wanted him to go longer because I wanted to actually have somebody go into the week, give their thoughts on Mick, give their thoughts on Justin, give their thoughts on fucking John producing on Friday. I wanted all of it. So, we'll see what happens. Then I guess we should get into the show, because that's what I wanted to be talked about. So I might as well just talk about it. We started off with the Dakotas. Dakota's live shows, there was a lot of contention as far as whether it was good, whether it was mid, whether it was horrible. For me, it was fine. There really wasn't a lot going on. Um, I don't know what people expected though, because nobody lives in North Dakota or South Dakota. So everyone who was like, "Oh man, no one showed up. Oh man, blah blah blah." I think everybody showed up in each state from North Dakota and South Dakota. Those 5 to 6 people are probably the only people that live there, other than the hotel staff that were around. So I wouldn't really expect too much from a North Dakota and South Dakota show. And the whole point was for the Black Friday giveaway. So it was just supposed to be a fun shoot the shit show for both days. And I don't know why everyone expected it to blow their minds, as they always do for every single show. They want every single show to just blow them out of the fucking water. And every time it doesn't do that, they think it's the worst show. KMS is derailing, everything's falling apart, but that's just not the case. Literally, the show is just Kirk and whatever Minifan or guest coming in, and the producers shooting the shit for 1 to 3 hours. I mean, but the Dakota shows were not bad at all. They were just fine. But what did come from the Dakota shows was what everyone was talking about this week, and that was the Mick versus Justin rivalry. Um, Nobody really saw it coming. I think everybody thought it was going to be more of a positive spin as far as Mick goes, because we all know that Mick usually tends to get in some sort of spat with somebody, whether he's appearing on the show or he's about to appear on the show. But on the road trip, looked like everyone was having a great time. At least from what I saw, everyone was having a great time. Um, Mike was having fun with Justin. Justin was doing all of his 2,000 bits that he's been waiting to do forever and ever. And Mick was there along for the ride. So overall, though, they had a great time. All of a sudden on the way back, especially after Justin gave a, to me, more than fair B plus to Mick, because Justin's just going to shoot it straight. He's not going to be like, "Oh man, this guy gets an A plus. He's the best person I've ever met in my entire life." After our 3 days on a road trip together, anybody who you go on a road trip with and you give an A plus is fucking insane in general. So the B plus I would have been more than happy with, but Mick wasn't, because he knows it was his opportunity to get a slight taken at him and kind of play that card. So they go back. They all arrive back in Watertown. Mick goes back to the Cape. And then all of a sudden, Mick starts throwing jabs, saying, "Of course Justin did this. Of course Justin plotted against me. This was his plan all along." Justin constantly pushing out producers. You know, we seen him push out Gus when him and Coleman were there. And then he pushed out Coleman once he got in the seat so he could have it to himself. And now nobody can find a producer seemingly to take over the spot, which also isn't true, but that's the narrative that Mick was pushing. Mick himself, I personally do not hate Mick. I don't hate Mick. I've done a Mike and the Minifans with him, and I've talked to him a couple of times. I genuinely believe what Kirk and Mike were saying, like outside of the show, in person, he is a extremely kind guy. So I'm just pissed at him because I feel like he wasted a really, really good opportunity. It was right in front of his face. And instead of just taking the opportunity and taking all the punches in stride and just having a good time with the boys, taking a couple ribbings, he decided to flip out and then turn everything around on it's Justin against me. Justin's pushing me out. I can't believe he would do this. And that is just like, I understand Justin's frustration. Like, I would be so fucking pissed if I was just trying to give all my kindness, trying to show somebody that they're accepted into the crew and get started off on the right foot, and then they just turned around everything on me. That was extremely, extremely disappointing. So, I mean, overall, for this whole Mick versus Justin thing, Mick is completely in the wrong. Um, Absolutely in the wrong. But what Justin did wrong was he played into the whole rat thing that Mick was calling him. Mick was calling him a rat over and over, and then Justin said, "Oh, okay, I'm a rat, so I'll be a rat." And then he proceeded to rat Mick out for shit that truly doesn't really matter. Like, no one really cares if Mick's hitting a pen in the back. No one really cares if Mick has a burner account where he just says a bunch of gay shit to Coleman. Like, no one's really gonna like hang their hat on that at the end of the day. And Justin playing into the Mick accusation doesn't it's just like it's a shitty way to handle it. Like, if you're trying to show that you have kind of like this moral high ground, at least from Justin's perspective, then just don't even play into the Mick thinks you're a rat bit. Because all of a sudden, then you are just doing exactly what you're doing. All you're going to do is strengthen his point and give him ammo that he never had and he never really needed. So I thought that whole part was just like, ugh, don't do that shit. That's just stupid. But Justin is great overall. He clearly put his hand out for Mick and wanted him to feel accepted. And Mick really just kind of screwed him over at the end. So I completely understand his frustration. There we go. We got Justin versus Mick, another episode of Beef and Podcast in the making. I would like to see them go at it for more than 5 minutes. That would be really good. I feel like eventually, though, they would be able to work it out. Like, even when we get to Friday, how Mick just kind of came in, and then when he did leave, he like must have been sprinting right out of that building, getting in his car, turning it on as fast as he could, and peeling out because fucking Justin went out. He's already gone. Didn't even see the car. Like, Buddy was done. So it's an interesting take from both sides. I don't really see Mick's side. I don't think anyone should really see Mick's side because Justin just has shown that he's not really the type to maliciously attack somebody. I just think that his loyalty to Kirk outweighed his loyalty to his producers, which is, Coleman and then Mick. And as far as like ratting in general, I know that Kirk wants Justin to identify the discrepancies that all the producers have and kind of essentially just rat them out. But Justin doesn't really need to. Like, there's no point. I mean, just because your boss tells you to do something, it doesn't mean you just sit there and robotically follow every single order. Like, what he doesn't know won't hurt him. If Mick has the pen or whatever, he has a burner account, like, no reason to tell him. If Kirk comes in and says, "Oh, were you going to tell me eventually?" You can just be like, "No, I was never going to tell you. I was just going to keep it between myself and him." And then Kirk can get mad about it. But I mean, at the end of the day, Kirk likes you enough to keep you on the show, Justin. So you don't really have to be afraid of him just nixing you at the snap of a finger every time he feels like you slightly wronged him. I personally don't think that would ever be the case. I think Justin has plenty of ground to stand on. So, in my opinion, don't need to tell Kirk of anything like that. Freddie Lynn says, "Wow, military guy that won't follow orders. Chain of command? Whoa." And Freddie, to that I say, yes, chain of command is definitely absolutely a real thing. But if I am the team leader and I have guys under me and a few guys over me, I got to be the one to take the bullet for the guys below me's fuck ups. All their fuck ups below me, I'm supposed to take the brunt of that, not the guys who actually did it. I'll take care of them myself, but higher up shouldn't ever have to be really dealing with them in any capacity whatsoever. That's really just more of my point. Like, Justin can deal with that on his own if he wants to tell Mick, if he feels so inclined to tell Mick, "Hey, man, I don't know if I would be doing that. Kirk doesn't like that shit, blah, 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 blah." But he doesn't need to go up to the chain of command and go to the top. He just takes the bullets. That's what you got to do. You just got to, you take the bullets, you take the ass chewing, and then you move on, figure out your shit for yourself. That's the way I see it. A lot of people don't see it that way, but I mean, is what it is at that point, because I would do it exactly the way I described, and that's just how I feel. So on Thursday, though, we get the Thursday show because that's kind of where everything popped off. But we had Ron and we had Mike, and I think we could all say, like, it was assessed that this was all Mike's fault, and that's probably true. You know, you could kind of see the little seeds he was planting in their brains, slowly derailing the relationship between everybody. And I can't believe Mike would do something like that. Disappointing. But alas, we move on. Ron was great on the show. And as always, Ron, he just knows the perfect opportunities. That's why he's one of the road trip guys that Kirk has identified. Ron's quiet, gets in his great jokes, and then everybody laughs and moves on. But there was a problem on Thursday. And my biggest problem on Thursday is not really a big deal. And I'm completely, like, not mad for any good reason. But Kirk's Lord of the Ring take was one of the dumbest, most ridiculous takes I've ever heard of in my life. It was just so stupid. I can't, like, obviously, no shit. I love Kirk. I'm on his fucking network. Everyone thinks I'm sucking his dick every other day, blah, blah, blah. But oh my God. Like, Lord of the Rings is one of the greatest movie series of all time. If you look in the top 20 movies and you put everything, every single IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, fucking every single movie reviewing site, Lord of the Rings, all three of those movies are breaching the top 20. So those movies are amazing. For all of you who don't know, the movies are not about Frodo. The movies are about Aragorn. But I'm not going to get into it because I'll start nerding out and just look like a dumbass. And we just don't really need to get into it. But horrible take by Kirk. Lord of the Rings is fucking amazing. Aragorn is one of the best movie characters ever. I would put him probably in at least my top 3, maybe even my number 1, because he's just so fucking awesome. But yeah, that's really all I'd say about that. Nothing really else happened on Thursday other than what we already talked about. It was really mostly just about Mick and Justin and reviewing the Dakota trips and what they thought the Dakota trips, how they thought they went. But one thing that did come after Thursday, as you can see from the comments right here, the BBRN, the Beanbag Ron Network, is approaching orbit, moonbound. Ron started his own network, and it's the best start to any network ever. Me going after him after he started his network is essentially just insulting because of how well it's going. Beanbag Ron Network to the moon, one of the greatest networks ever created out there. Menners hates it because it's already better than the Menners Minifan Network. And then the KMS Network is supporting it. Ron is not the new enemy, as Kirk may have thought. We're just getting there with these tests. Yes, there you go. Right as I say it. Jackson makes a good point. Even just the tests, the network is off to a hot start. And hopefully, as we get past this testing phase and things start going, we continue our ascension to the moon. So go Beanbag Ron Network. That was great. And then we move on to Friday. Friday, we had Ted, we had Clemmer, and then we had John coming in to produce. Everybody knows it. It even shouldn't really even be a question at this point. At this point, it really is just going to be like a played out bit. But John's the favorite for the job. John would be the best person for the job. Do I hold an extreme bias? Absolutely. But I truly, genuinely believe that John would be the best for the job. To me, it's not even like a second thought. He knows how to produce. He is very, very involved with the network, given that he is the CEO, and he's very, very involved with the show. The rapport back and forth, he takes the jokes easy, smooth as butter. I really don't think there should be any sort of debate or negotiation. The only negotiation should really be that would be just like salary or some shit. But I already got into that with Sneaks. I really don't feel like getting into it on here. Let's see here. Got a couple comments about it. So Curtis says there's a dark horse producer that we don't know that's coming. That totally could be something. That's within the realm of possibility for sure. And maybe that's why Kirk shows some hesitation with John, unless he is just doing a fully committed bit. And as far as dark horse producers coming, I myself don't really have any guesses. We know we're getting a couple of guest producers, or excuse me, I guess guests / former producers, and Dave Cullinane coming on tomorrow, and that should be fun. Like, it's interesting to see all the previous producers' takes on what's going on. Like when Cullinane and Justin were in after Gus and Coleman fucked up the best of. That was one of my more favorite episodes of the year, just because it was interesting to see them go back and forth. Where does the blame go? Who is responsible for what? And I thought that personally was interesting to listen to, because you kind of get their perspective from their side without having the pressure of, all right, I need to say what Kirk wants to hear, or try to give him some input, or be on his side, or say something that he thinks is smart and valid. They just kind of shoot from the hip, and all of a sudden those valid points are just right there in front of everybody's face, and there's really no disputing it. Looks like here Freddie wants Dana Beers in the seat. Yeah, I saw that. I don't think Dana Beers wants to be in that seat. So I don't think that's really within the realm of possibility. Like, Freddie's points that he were making about Dana Beers were valid. He's from the area. He's a good punching bag. He knows how to work a producer's chair. But Dana Beers does tons of other shit all the time. If you scroll through a Barstool Sports Twitter page, I'm sure you'd probably see him like 3 or 4 times throughout the week doing other shit. So I don't really see that being a possibility at all. Like, I'm definitely putting all my chips on the table for John. John is great. He does a great job. So to me, it's a no-brainer. He would be good. Yes. He would be good at it. I have no doubt that. So, all right, we got another question too right after that. Facts, being a Barstool guy, are there any legit candidates that you could see from that realm? Curtis, I hate to disappoint you, but I know that I'm seen as like a Barstool guy, but I don't really know like the rest of the universe. Like, I know who people are from like vlogs and little clips, but I don't really watch a lot of other shows religiously. The only shows that I watch consistently are KMS, Pardon My Take, and then Bussin' with the Boys. But if I were to guess, I would say probably John Rich could leave the running the rundown, and then he could come over to produce, because I know he was in the producer's race before, so I don't even see why. Oh yeah, there you go. Jackson from Australia said the same thing. Like, I don't really know him and Kirk's relationship though, and I don't know how Kirk feels about him. So that's more to be desired. But if I had to pick anybody from the Barstool universe, like right now, gun to my head, that's the only answer I could really come up with. Bustin' with the Boys associate producer could be looking for promotion. Oh man, no, I hope not. Those are all wonderful guys, like JP and Jack and Garrett and all them. I think they want to stay in Nashville for as long as they can, and I think anyone with the Bussin' crew is going to stay in Nashville. That's the place to be. If I were to do anything with Barstool, everyone would want to be in Nashville. That's the place to be. You don't want to be in New York or Chicago. You want to be down there. So they're all going to stay there. John Rich, big drops guy. Well, there you go. Yeah, people do want to see better drops. But for now, I love the Justin being slow on the drops bit that's going on right now. And I feel like over time it's going to get more consistent anyways. So in my opinion, that's just naturally going to fix itself. But for the time being, it's funny to watch every single day. Just him 30 seconds later giving a drop that has nothing to do with the current conversation. All right. If it's a Barstool guy, it has to be a Boston guy, South Shore preferred, that is also good at tech, a lot of production experience, but is also dumb and easy to make fun of. Anyone check all the boxes. Freddie, I agree with you. Um, he does check all those boxes, but like I said before, I'm pretty sure he does like other content with I only know one other thing he does because I know he does like a show with Marty, but I think he does other content as well. So him when you become a producer for KMS, Kirk usually likes to have people pretty centralized on the show, and that's their focus, the show, and they do bits for the show, and they do everything for the show. So Dana Beers doesn't really fit that bill, and that's why I don't think it would be good. Whereas somebody like John Rich, who is really just like a blogger, and then he produces the rundown, it would be a lot easier for him to kind of just leave the rundown, go produce, and he could probably still blog if he wants. I doubt Kirk would give a fuck if he still blogged, so like I see that being the easier choice if I had to choose between those two. But Danny Beers does fit the bill. Jackson says Feidelberg should bail on KFC and produce. Yeah, so I don't know that show at all as far as like listening to it. I've never listened to a full episode, but I do know obviously who KFC is. Like if you're involved with Barstool, you know who KFC is. And I don't know if that show is like successful ever since Barstool Radio ended or not, but um, Fights could probably just go back and work in Boston. They could probably do a little thing in Boston if they wanted to, because I do like Fights. I liked what I saw from him on Surviving Barstool, and I've liked him in the other facets of content I've seen from him. I don't know what he's like on the regular because, like I said, I don't watch KFC Radio. I don't really have any interest in watching KFC Radio. So I'm assuming Fights is good though, because everybody has nothing but praise for him most of the time. So should be good. Says Feidelberg is hilarious. Fight's a good dude. So yeah, like I said, I'm assuming he's a good dude and he's funny. So there we go. And let's see. There's no world where a Barstool guy would produce KMS part-time and still do other Barstool shit. Yeah, that's kind of really the point that I was making with Dana Beers. You can only do so much, and I don't think Dana Beers wants to stop doing his other shit. So therefore, it doesn't really bring him in or put him as a candidate. Like it is a good poll. It is a good poll because, like you said, he's from there. He knows how to produce. He knows how to take hits, but it just doesn't fit probably with what Dana would want to do, and that's kind of my whole thing for it. But we can kind of move past like who we want for producers for now, just so I can get through the other shit, which really isn't much left. Right now, I know we have the Sako show coming up. The Sako show, I was excited when it got announced because I was going to try to go to my first live show of KMS. Everyone always talks about how fun they are. Everyone always talks about how much of a good time it is. I saw a lot of the clips from the last one, and it just looked like a good time with all the Minifans just hanging out in the theater and Kirk doing a bunch of dumb bits on the show that makes everyone laugh. So it looked super entertaining, and I'm sure it's even more fun with the rest of the Minifans there. But I'm not going to that one. I can't leave the state for like the next 2-3 months while I'm on doing stuff for my job. So stuck here, but we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully in the future we can come out to a show. And then as far as like the pre-show goes, I don't see many people going to that just because of the $100 hat. That was such a stupid idea. $100 a car just to go in and watch a preview, because I don't think it's the full documentary. I'm pretty sure it's only part of this documentary of Chinese triad weed, and I don't see how that could be worth $100. maybe I'm the dumb one and everyone else thinks it's worth $100, but I'm pretty sure the consensus is that it's not worth $100. It's probably not even worth 50. Um, it's probably worth like $10, maybe 15. Because if you're gonna make something like that, I understand it's an independent project, but that was very clearly just trying to bleed the Minifans out of money right there. So no interest from me. No interest from me. Other than that, the other thing that I had was I know that everyone, at least in the Minifan universe, was talking about it. So, and I got into it a little bit. I didn't really get into it that much, but I got into it a little bit uh, with Steve coming back with the show. It was horrible. I agree. He doesn't really add anything of value to the show. He doesn't add anything interesting. He was fighting with people on Twitter, especially Jeff D'Lo, obviously, and it went nowhere. It was just essentially Jeff D'Lo saying that he looks like one of the inflatables from a car dealership, and it was an extremely valid point because that's all he does. He was doing it purely for attention, and then he was trying to play the relevancy game with everybody he'd fight with on Twitter, and it went nowhere. And then Kane jumped in. Kane's he's a fucking idiot. I don't know. People can like him, people will hate him. It doesn't really seem like there's anybody who's like indifferent on him. But for me, my perspective on both Kane and Steve is like you can be the nicest guy in the world when I'm seeing you face to face, or the nicest guy on planet Earth when it's one on one chatting. But if you don't have the spine to maintain actual consistency, ironically, you're not a good guy. You're not like you can be a nice guy, doesn't mean you're a good guy, and neither of them are. But I kind of already said my piece with them that they're inconsistent and spineless, and I stand with that take, and that's really all I got for that. Like, I'm kind of done with them. Like, I don't really see myself getting involved with that whole realm ever again. They already know how I feel. Now people who are watching who didn't see that small interaction know how I feel. They're spineless and useless. So that's that. And then finally, as far as like big topics that I wanted to touch on, Barstool Survivor is going to be happening. So with Barstool Survivor, they were just kind of like knocking people out of who would actually be involved in the show and who would actually make it to the end and who would get eliminated immediately. Because like obviously Dave isn't going to win, Big Cat isn't going to win. Those are the two, richest guys in the company. They don't need the money, and it doesn't really seem realistic that they get it. Uh, Robbie was, and probably still is for most people at least, the favorite. So, oh yeah, surviving Barstool. Excuse me. So yeah, surviving Barstool, not Barstool Survivor, but Robbie is the favorite. I think everyone thinks so. I would agree. Robbie's a super nice guy, super chill, and he seems to be smart. And I'm pretty sure he's into the show as well. Clemmer definitely wants to be on that show so bad. But I feel like because Clemmer wants to be on that show so bad, he would get out very, very quickly. You see those people who get overexcited, or they try to do too much, or I don't know, they try to act like the game master right from the get-go. If he played it like Tommy, he might last a little bit, but if he were to play it like the way he seemed to be talking about it, I feel like he'd be out probably the first or second time that his team went and lost a challenge. So that's just my take. Obviously, Frank is going to go out first. The second that his team loses, he's going out. He probably will go out first because I'm assuming he's going to cost his team the first challenge that they do, and then he's just going to go home. And I don't know why or anyone would want to deal with Frank for that long. Like, Frank is hilarious in spurts, but it's literally just Twitter clips. And it's some of those Twitter clips where I think he's funny. But other than that, yeah, it would be insufferable. And I think Clemmer, it would be kind of like, I don't know, maybe he would play a little too low key and he would go out kind of like Nate did. Because Nate is he didn't do anything. He's just the blogging executive guy or whatever. He came on the show and everyone was just kind of like, all right, Nate's the odd man out, so we're just gonna vote him out, right? And then everyone was like, yeah, all right, cool, let's vote him out. And then they did, and he just was extremely fucking awkward about it. He's very, very uncomfortable. And then he left the show, and it got better from there. So it would be interesting though to see Clemmer in there. So I'm excited, and I think Taylor and Will are going to be in there. Gilly and Wallow are going to be in there. Wit, Biz, Ra, like there is a lot of people in this one, but I feel like if they split it out right, it's going to be a really, really good show because that's what made me a fan of KMS. So I really like the show, and to be honest, with how many big cast members there are, Kurt kind of fits that same level as Taylor, Will, Gilly, and Wallow as far as like notoriety within the Barstool world and like revenue stream. So I would assume since they're all like the talent of their own respective shows and all of those shows are pretty big, that they make around the same. Although I could be wrong because I mean Taylor was the left tackle for the NFL for 11 years, so he's got like $100 million, and he's a part-time guy, so his Barstool salary probably isn't as much, but you get the idea. So you could have Kirk sneak in there and win. He just needs to not align himself with the fucking Stephen Che. Like that was really the downfall. They just don't align yourself with Stephen Che. Like that dude, yeah, he's inconsistent as fuck as far as that game was. Like I would have tried to get him out so fast just because I probably would have been uncomfortable standing next to him. So that's where Kirk fucked up. I don't know. I think this time around he could actually make it a lot farther. And who knows? Maybe he could win because once it kind of gets to the smaller groups and it gets more mind games, I feel like that's where Kirk would thrive. As long as there's no puzzles involved and he doesn't have to guide anybody blindfolded through a puzzle, he's good to go. So he just needs to get to the point where they start playing a lot more of the mind and psychological part of the game. And from that point, he could be soaring. But yeah, I mean, that's really mostly we have for the week. I'll go through the comments, answer a couple of questions that I've seen and a couple of things that people had, just to kind of wrap it up. And then we'll all get out of here, get ready for the show tomorrow. Should be a good one. I'm excited for it. And hopefully this whole Mick thing will kind of die off after Coleman ends on and addresses it. But let's just go through, see what we got. Okay. Facts, if you were offered a 3-month trial period for the producer role, would you take it? Yeah, if I wasn't contractually obligated to stay exactly where I'm at and not move, I would take it. Or kind of like the thing that I tried to do with Zero Block 30, the Army internship program. If Kirk signed off on that and I was able to go up and work for him, yeah, I would do it. That would be fun. I mean, who wouldn't want it? If anyone is aspiring to do media, like I clearly am, because I have a fucking $100 microphone and I do these shows and I love like the KMS universe, like who wouldn't want to do that? That would be super fun. Always. And then let's see. Looks like 19 tickets have been sold for the pre-show, 126 remaining. Yeah, I think that's what everybody thought. Nobody was really expecting a huge sale for this pre-show just because of, what it was, and the price is ridiculous. Connor Leary says, who the hell is this guy? I wouldn't worry about it, Connor. It's not important. And then here we got Curtis again saying, is it just me, or does it seem that there's too many people in it? I do agree with that as far as surviving Barstool. There are too many people in it as far as just like volume wise, but I feel like if they split it up like well and it goes smoothly, then we'll be happy that there were that many people. But if it does end up being a shit show, yeah, that's going to be the main complaint, is that there was too many people. But right now, I think they're just trying to like check the temp and figure out what's going to be good for the future, because I don't think they expected it to be as successful as it was, and they were happily surprised, as was I, because I hadn't seen any of the previous ones. I didn't know the show existed. I didn't know like half the people on that cast existed, but for me personally, it opened up my eyes to more Barstool content. That and like the Writers Cup, like stuff like that, where you kind of get to see these personalities out interacting with other Barstool employees. I think when they're produced as well as it was, you see a lot better content and it's a lot more interesting and fun to do. And then we got this. Chris Clemmer presents Face the Facts. Yes, this is Chris Clemmer's Barstool's The Kirk Minahan Show, Face the Facts on the Kirk Minahan Network, presented by Chris Clemmer. So thank you to Chris. Thank you for the funds. Hopefully I don't fuck it up and put us in the negative, but I wouldn't depend on it. But yeah, that's all we got for today. First Face the Facts. Hopefully in the future we have people on. Everybody's open up for an invite. Whoever would want to come on, just hit me up. Oh, look at that. One last thing before we go, because it's a very, very interesting statement. Rank the 4 performances from Mike and the Minifans. So if I had to go from top to bottom, or I'll go bottom to top. So dead last was Gilroy. He was insufferable. He was really fucking annoying. He just whined the whole time, and he likes to hear himself talk. I'm not a fan of him. I didn't really know him before. I have no interest in knowing him anymore. And then after that was probably Chad was third, because he didn't really know nothing. I mean, not really his fault though. Like if he was with a better cast, it probably would have been a lot smoother. And then Luke's obviously second, just played into the Mick bit the whole time, and it was just I think it was just because like his mic was shitty. He was having problems with his computer. I don't know. It could be a lot of things. And then PRC, he's the host. I know the host runs the show, but he tried his best to kind of get things going. It was just the conversation did not flow at all. Overall, just a really, really bad show. And you can't really shift the blame solely onto somebody individually. I think it was just kind of like a bad mix of everything. And that's where I would put it as the top 4. And then finally, Danny says, can you please address the rumors that you've been approached by the Beanbag Ron Network with an offer to bring Face the Facts to that platform? I've not been approached yet. It would be a hard bargain if so. I mean, after one episode would be pretty wild. But I think the Beanbag Ron Network is looking for more top-tier talent, and they kind of want to hit home runs every time. And I'm more of like a 4th, 5th round draft pick. So I think they're looking for the first, second rounders. Then I'll probably go undrafted, and they might pick me up in free agency. I'm assuming that's probably more how it would go. So look forward to the future. You never know. Beanbag Ron Network to the moon. I'm all for it. Love the test phase. Can't wait for the live. So it's going to be great. But yes, like I said, thank you all for watching. If anybody would like to come on, just shoot the shit with me, do whatever. We talk about really whatever you want, whether you want to talk about the show, whether you want to ask me shit and I ask you shit. We can do whatever. I'm all down. Open invite to everybody on the network. Open invite to everybody on the show. Justin's invited. Coleman's invited. Mick's invited. Kirk's invited. Mike's invited. And all of you are invited. So I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for sticking through it if you did. Whether it was rough, whether it was good, I'm glad you were here. So we'll see y'all next time. All right. Have a good one.